Right. Thanks everybody again for joining us for another WKS podcast. This time I'm with the Mighty Small. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm doing very well. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Thank you very much, mate. Yeah, brilliant. Shall we start off by sort of finding out sort of a bit about, where you started in music? How did it all start for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in music as I actually started getting my rhythm from dancing when I was a wee nipper. My mum used to take me along to dance classes because a friend of hers ran a class, and they didn't have enough numbers in the class, so she sort of as mums do. She went, "Oh, you can do that," and she volunteered me for the course. So I went along and studied tap dancing and jazz, and that gave me an appreciation for my limbs and how to work my limbs to work interactive of one another, or in respective of one another. And then from there, that kind of led on to me wanting to play drums. So I managed to get my father, when I was a kid, used to take me and my brothers and give us the opportunity to learn to drive. He was an engineer, had his own like garage, so he wanted us driving as quick as possible. But he always gave you the choice: if you want to learn to drive, I'll pay for your lessons and so on and so forth. So
Mm.
I opted out of that and opted in for a drum kit instead, and drove the confused poor man over to, or get him to drove me over to a punk rocker who lived in Brentwood at the time, not too far away from here. And we bought this bashed up, like 8-piece kit off of him for a fraction of the price of driving lessons, which really pleased him. And then I just got started on drums. And then from there, I joined my first band, went along to sort of it was a school band. Went along to we rehearsed or sort of wrote songs in lunchtime and stuff, and we had our first sort of rehearsal in the school music room, and I wasn't great on drums, I'll be honest. So when we came to having our proper first out of school rehearsal at a studio, another drummer turned up when I turned up, and I'd been replaced unbeknown to me. But the guitarist in the band, who was very talented, went on to be Muse's engineer, a guy called Nick Mentor. He said to me, "Well, you've got a great voice, man, and nobody else wants to sing, so you're the singer." He gave me a microphone, and it kind of went on from there, really. And I
Okay.
started instruments as I went along. I wanted to learn the right songs, so he taught me some basics on guitar, and then I learned to play bass and brought my drumming on a bit more, picked up a piano, or picked one up, played a piano,
Mm.
and just built the instruments around that, really.
Okay, so are you a solo performer now then, or are you in a band or?
I'm a one man band, so I
Okay.
set up like a 5-6 piece band, and I use loop pedals to record the parts of the song while I sing and perform them as I go through the song. So
Okay.
would be I start by playing an introduction on guitar and I sing in the part, get to the chorus, by which time I've switched to a bass guitar sound and I've recorded the first chorus, sing the chorus, come back into the second verse. I'm sitting on the drums, singing the second verse, playing that part, and all these bits I loop on the fly
Right.
as I go along. So I don't use Ableton and things like that, although I have done in the past. I like to keep it all flexible. The possibility of a calamity just adds to the live performance, so I've kept
Yes.
it sort of
Yeah.
like that.
Okay.
And that's been standing me good stead and keeping me in financially okay, and it's
Brilliant.
also an interesting way to write.
Yeah. 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 So, sort of, what music have you got out there now, and where can people get hold of it?
Yeah, most of my, I mean, you can find me on Spotify under the Mighty Small, or under my name, Paolo Morena, which is Paolomorena. I use Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram more than any of the other social medias. I've got a large presence on Facebook, and again, that's the Mighty Small, all one word. Or you can find me under my name again if you search through there. And though from there, you can link to YouTube and various other bits and pieces.
Mm. Mm.
About I'm sort of 3/4 of the way through my sixth album,
Okay.
um, and all the other bits and pieces, like I say, are available on Spotify. But I'll be sure to send you some links. So if you wanted to include any of those in the podcast or anything like that, please do. You can
Superb.
find.
Superb. So, how would you describe your music then?
That's a good question. um, I guess the one constant thread throughout all of the albums and the music I've recorded is my voice, which is a bit like Buckley and Plant. I've got a good range, and as I say, I started singing from a very or shouting from a very young age, and that worked my vocal cords and built up the muscle structure so that as I went on and sort of learned to sing properly, I had enough range and force to be able to push stuff out and work on things and just build my vocal structure a little bit better. And that's always been my main instrument, the vocals. I guess that with regards to describing the sound, it's kind of like rock indie as a sort of mainstream ideal, if you like. But then I've been fortunate enough to be in, I lived in Chicago for a while, and I was in a jazz band there. And when I lived in Amsterdam, I was in a funk band, and we kind of messed around with rock funk, that kind of stuff. Around about the time that the Chili Peppers were at their height, we were really influenced by that kind of stuff. And then coming back to London, the band I was in there, I mean, these are all manifestations of the one band that I've been in. So people have come in and left and gone and left and gone. It so happens now that it's just me and the looping pedals. But I suppose, yeah, sort of like indie rock and roll, indie metal, that kind of thing, and then connotations leading to some dancier style music, and connotations leading to things like jazz and folk and stuff. I mean, when I go out and I play live, I've been able to keep that going, mainly because I do the whole performance just myself. And I start like the opening show as an acoustics, so I play my acoustic repertoire, and then I move on to the band stuff and play the full looping rig. And then by the end of the evening, I'll start dropping beats and building the dancier side. So when everyone's had a few bevs, wants to have a bit of a boogaloo, I can accommodate that as well. And it's not for any other reason than in order to keep keep the money coming in, and to stay as a professional musician and stave off the necessity to do a 9 to 5. Being able to manifest that kind of performance and being able to work the whole evening myself meant that I could charge a decent price for it and afford to do it. You know, I love playing in bands, and I have done most of my life. But when it comes down to the affordability of being able to do that, you sacrifice either splitting wages between a band, or you have members who work a day job, and then the responsibility to do it generally falls on your shoulders, and they jump pitch in as and when they can as a kind of hobby or interest thing. Both have their benefits and their drawbacks. I've never actually met anyone who's just, I have met a few people who have thrown caution to the wind, but and just been a musician regardless. But unfortunately, the two people in my lifetime who I've known who have done that are no longer with us, neither of them, for various reasons, not necessarily linked towards financial woes, but it tends to take a massive toll on an artist to do something like that. And sad to say that some people just never make it through.
You mentioned you're halfway through your 6th album, I think you said.
Yeah, just writing it now.
When are you hoping for that one to be complete and out there then?
Well, my aim is for the end of the year, before the end of the year. I've been working with an American actor, a guy called Ron Cephas Jones, who's scripting lyrics for me for some of the tunes. You might have seen the TV show This Is Us. This Is Us?
Yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Father in that, and he's had some successes where he was in Luke Cage's, or the Marvel's Luke Cage, and so he's been around. I met him on a film set many years ago, and we kind of, I was his driver, driving him from the theatre to a film that a friend of mine was producing and directing, and we just struck up a good friendship. And he's one of those amazing New Yorkers. He has such a lyrical voice, and you know, when you talk to someone like that, like, hey man, how's it going, man, what you doing, it's exciting to talk to. He excites me to chat to him, and I totally took a shine to him, and he was a bit of a mentor. So he's been scripting lyrics and stuff like that for various ideas that I can pitch into him. And I have other friends from bands. A friend of mine, Philip Gardner, who's an amazing pianist and a writer as well. He tends to write a lot of TV and advertising stuff. And he's been working with me on the piano parts and bits and pieces. So I'll ping tracks up to him in leads, and he'll ping stuff back down to me. It's quite an organic thing. So we're working with this kind of concept, and I've never done an album like this before, and pinging stuff to different people around the world. You have to take your time. It takes time, whether it's take time or not, it just takes time. But the process is wonderful, because what you get back is always really, really different to where you thought things would be. And that inevitably makes you go, oh, wow, I never thought of that. I'll just hang on, I'll take that and do this. Or suddenly everything's changed. Right, we've got to go back to the drawing board and start recording again. You have to, but, you know, that stuff happens, and I think that's one of the wonderful things about collaboration.
Yes,
So
superb.
my aim is for the end of the year, which I'm clinging on to, and I think realistically we can do that.
Okay, fantastic.
Thought
So,
process.
yeah. So whereabouts, sort of, what sort of venues have you performed at then?
All over the place. I've played the usual, Me Fiddler, the Borderline, for like a couple of the 100 Club in London. Played up and down the country. I struggle to think of any off the top of my head. One in Glasgow, can't remember what it's called. Can't remember.
What what's been one of your your favourite venues to perform?
That's a good question. You know, I used to run an open mic night in Amsterdam at a venue called the Whiskey Bar, which is on the Single Canal, a long, narrow bar. So at the and toilets at the end, and a little stage next at the end of the bar. And we used to play there. At one point, our in-house band was about 5 of us, and you might know this. Cramming onto a stage that was too small to hold a drummer, let alone 5 musicians. So we'd have to scale down and all play like this. But great thing about that venue, I think, was the fact that anybody could turn up and they got a free smoke and like a 2-pint thing of beer if they had the balls to get up and perform. And
Okay.
Amsterdam, which is a great trade-off. You know, I've never been to any session where and we were really pleased to offer that. And we had like some celebs. We'd have people walk into because Amsterdam. I'm going back like 20 years. Amsterdam was one of those places where people travelled to. And you know, there's celebrities, you name it. You never knew who was going to walk through the door on a Friday night. And if you were making a good sound, inevitably you'd pull people through. You know, and we were right next door to the Bulldog, which is one of the oldest coffee shops in Amsterdam, and on the corner was the Doors coffee shop. So the 3 sort of venues next to each other, even though we were the only one that played music, there was just a great scene, and right on the canal, so it looked gorgeous. And like I say, I remember some of we used to have this dwarf woman called Liz who would turn up in a little red sequin dress and stand on the bar, and she couldn't sing, she could speak lyrics, but she had like a songbook like this, you know, that from the Doors through to, you know, Jimi Hendrix, you name it, she would do it, and she had a voice a bit like Eartha Kitt, you know. So, and she was this 3 foot high in a red sequin dress. We'd have people coming in who had obviously taken something. It was like a David Lynch movie, you know what I mean? They're walking and like, what the hell's going on? I've got to stay here. With this little man in the bar performing in a red sequin dress, and us all sort of cramped on, and you know, the sort of wage away past the band to get to the toilet. So if you stayed, you couldn't help but come up and see the band. And things like that, you know, scenarios like that would just stick in my mind and make me smile and go, my God, what were we thinking? What are we, you know, what a bad time to be alive.
Brilliant. So what artists do you admire then, which, you know, and have been an influence on you?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, Paul Simon, I've always loved writing. Tom Waits,
Brilliant.
can't get, you know, I mean, Tom Waits is fantastic. Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin was one of the first bands that, when I was 13, somebody gave me a cassette, and I played the cassette until the tape stretched. You know, you get that warping on the old cassettes.
Yeah.
You're like, I can't play this no more. But I played that over and over again. I would turn that over and over again, and the voice, the music, just really massively inspired me. Anything 60s really. So 60s rock and roll. Again, my mind struggles to think of things of Pink Floyd. Big fan of Pink Floyd. And then sort of more that 90s, naughty sort of grungy influence stuff. So anything from the Seattle scene, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, like Mudhoney, those kind of stuff, and the New York scene, New York Dolls, obviously big influence, Reed and Velvet Underground. And then sort of trying to think more recent bands like Radiohead, always like U2, although not massively been influenced by them. Yeah, I mean, and then going into the 2010s and that, Dre, 21 Pilots,
Okay.
and I like dipping into that. You know, when I was growing up as a kid, I spent a few years living with my grandparents, and my grandfather only ever played classical music, and I all the time, and I love that. I didn't understand it, but just that influence, that to have musical sound around me for that period of time when I lived there was wonderful. It made everything feel lighter, or it made
Yeah.
it felt like your life was a soundtrack. You know, there was a soundtrack playing to your life when you lived there. It was like being in an advert or a movie or something. There was always sound playing. And when I grew up with in a household where I have five brothers and sisters, and even in that scenario, it was only my big brother Richie who played music. He had a pirate radio station back in the day, and would drop tracks like by Gary Newman, by Kraftwerk. Yeah, and this is when it was just dance
Yeah.
music was just sort of, it wasn't a thing. You know what I mean? They get these records and be like, oh, you got, this is like German underground. No one can get this anywhere else. And
Yeah.
I'm based in Chelmsford in Essex, and they used to broadcast to a very specific small percentage of people in Southend because that was the only distance the transmitter would transmit to. But they had a great laugh doing it, you know. And I remember sneaking into his room, and my dad is Italian, and in his family with his brothers and my grandfather, they had a family band, and that was how they'd make extra money when he first moved to the UK, and they'd play ballrooms and stuff like that. So my dad still had all these archaic old mixing desks and that stuff now that would be worth a fortune. But back then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But back when you're a kid, you'd be like, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you know, let's prop that up with this. You know, you used to. I think of it now and think, oh my god, what we like. Oh, that stuff. And they'd use these desks, and one of them had buried a transmitter in a field, and that's how they did their radio show between the three of them. So I used to listen to a lot of those records, and when it had a few plays and my brother got bored of it, I was the one who'd go, oh, you can have that, or you can have that. At Tour de France, I remember that being one of the first vinyls I had, you know. And, so that was kind of like a massive influence for me.
Brilliant. So have you, coming out of lockdown, have you got any sort of gigs on the cards now, or?
It's funny, isn't it? Lockdown's been crazy. Yeah, I've started a couple of things. I started doing some live shows from my little studio, which you can see here around me, where I broadcast live on a Friday night, and that goes through my Facebook page.
Okay.
I'm going to pick that up again. I'm playing. I've got some shows later in the year in September, but they're private shows. But I'm playing at the United Brethren, which is in Chelmsford in Essex, which is kind of like my local.
Right.
On Friday bank holiday, so I think it's the 28th. Yeah, 28th. That's right, isn't it?
I think so.
May 28th. The bank holiday at the end of May. I'm the first act to play, and they're doing 4 nights. I've got a nice garden there, outside bar and all this stuff, so we can actually do stuff. And I'll be playing the full looping rig and doing a 2-hour show there on the Friday the 28th. And I'm really looking forward to that. And what I'll probably do is, or what I will do, is commit to doing a live broadcast online of the rehearsals. So people just what it's about. So it's about. Hopefully there won't be. I mean, there'll be mistakes. It's a rehearsal, right? You know?
Yeah.
But it'll be fun, and then people can sort of get around their head around that, and kind of get their head around what it is I do, because that's often a big thing when you come to watch it. So that's the thing I've got planned for that. I've also started a songwriting group as well, called the Ultimate Absolute Essential Beginner's Guide to Writing a Song, which is aimed. I wrote a book basically in lockdown. I actually, when it all kicked off, I just as it was starting to kick off, and lockdown wasn't imminent, but there was suggestion of it, and obviously gigs just disappeared, which was a big part of my livelihood. I landed a 9-to-5 job, and I was selling import licenses for Saudi Arabia, people who ship stuff to Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Random.
More random than you can possibly imagine. How I landed that, I have no idea, but for some reason I got the opportunity for an interview, went in, they hired me. I was there for 18 months. I actually worked about 4 months and then got furloughed for the rest of the time with pay. It was very fortunate, very lucky. So of course I went, well, that's the universe going, write an album, man, do something useful with your time. So I started the album. I wrote a book about how to write songs, geared towards people who, it's a very simple book, geared towards people who have never written, don't know how to write, maybe don't play an instrument, heavily on the side of writing lyrics, which is something that I've always done. And I've nearly finished that. And the Facebook group is built around that principle. And it's a private group, and anybody can join if they want to. And we put up useful tips, and we promote it. We promote bits and pieces every week, and show people how they can do that and help them with the process. And then I've also put up original music as well for people who don't write, and say, well, here's an acoustic tune, write some lyrics to this. Here's a dance tune. Here's a full-blown band recording. Have a go, write some lyrics to this. And once they've done that, there's an opportunity to come back, and with my connection of musicians, they can hire a musician to sing the lyrics that they've written over the song, or a guitarist to play a solo, or a bit of both, or whatever. And then we get a finished version of the song. And I started my own little record label back in 2009 called More Cat Productions, back in the time when I was more active in a band, and I had a record label working with me. And I was signed to The Orchard, which is Sony, a big distributor in New York. And I still kept that account with those guys. And when I left the label, when I started my own stuff, started releasing my stuff independently as artists do, they got in touch and said, look, we want to keep your account open. We want to keep you releasing stuff. Just let us know what you want to do and where you want to go. So now I've given that opportunity to people who are part of the songwriting group. So the whole principal idea is to start your scripting, write a song, just get some musicians together to record it, and then at the end we can release it. And you can participate in that whole idea of being a musician with a view to creating a legacy, which is something I think that, even though it's taken me years to realize, I think is one of the reasons why I started writing music and creating songs in the first place. That, and when you're young, it's all about being seen in your ego, isn't it? You know what I mean? I'm going to do this. But as you get older, you're like, well, I don't look the same. I don't feel, I don't move the same.
Yeah.
I'm not a young man anymore, but you kind of realize what's of value and what you like about it. And I think every musician gets to a point when they go, well, I'm going to stop. You know, it's either doing something for you or it isn't. We question our reason for doing it anymore. And when you get to that point, you have to ask those questions of yourself. And thankfully, I was asking myself different questions I'd never asked before. And I loved the process, and I loved writing music, and I loved playing. And I was like, well, fuck it, I'm going to do it anyway. You know, I'm going to do this because of these reasons, and this is a better reason than I've ever had. And now I don't really care if who turns up, or if I look like this or I look like that, which is good.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just going to go for it.
Oh, fascinating stuff, mate. Absolutely fascinating.
Thanks, man.
So let's do a daft question. If you could open for any artist, past or present, you know, who would you like it to be?
It's got to be Bowie, hasn't it? Got to be David Bowie.
Okay.
I think David Bowie. I don't mind opening for Tom Waits, purely because I reckon the pre-show drink up would be a bloody good laugh. And the after-show party, you know, you could go disappear with Tom for a few days. You know,
easy,
or the Doors. Another example, and the Doors. What would it be like to hang out with Jim Morrison for a couple of days? Would you survive? You know, but you certainly have interesting stories to tell.
Yes.
So yeah, one of those three, I think: Bowie, the Doors, or Tom Waits.
Superb, mate. Superb. Right, final question for you. I ask everybody this question. Is there anybody you'd like to thank for you being here musically now?
That's a good question.
It is a bit of an on-the-spot moment, I suppose.
That's okay. I'm trying to think. You know, the musician, the artist inside me goes, "No, fuck them all. I did it myself."
Yeah,
but
yeah.
But the old wise man inside me goes, "I suppose I'd like to thank all the people who have ever believed in me enough to join me in a band and stand up on stage with me, because that takes a massive amount of belief and energy, you know. And a lot of the people who did that were in it for the ego reason. It wasn't something that they did because they perceived a life in it. It was just something everybody did when we were growing up. But their participation and I suppose their belief in me, or in my enthusiasm at least, to have a bloody good laugh and to have a good go. I suppose they deserve thanks for that, because you know, I think I would have probably gone, Black Saloon, what are you talking about? They're not going to do anything. But the fact that they did, and I learned so much, and in amongst those people, there were absolutely incredible musicians. You know, I've been privileged to work with some amazing jazz musicians, the whole Bainey family, who are New York jazz musicians, who I learnt a lot from. I worked with Scott Gorham from Thin Lizzy and his family, Jesse Gorham, you know, privilege of working with those guys. Edwin Collins, you know, worked with him as well. So I thank all of those people who took time out of their day to give this greasy little kid an opportunity to scream his lungs out and live the dream, even if only for a few months.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I think that would make sense.
Fantastic. Yeah, of course. You've got to be that, mate. Yeah.
I forget that'll be a problem.
Well, thank you so much for your time in the interview.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. It's been
no worries, and just good luck with everything.
Thanks. I shall share and post everything up and I'll links if anybody's interested in finding out more about me. Then please do.
Okay.
And if you're ever in the Essex area, you never know. But if you never know, hook us up and drop by for a jam and a pint of beer.
Nice.
And I've got a little bar out as well, so we can be socially distant.
Yes. Yeah. Brilliant. Look, just stay on the line once I finish recording a minute, and we'll have a quick yak again. All right. Well, you take care of yourself, mate.
Thanks very much.
No worries. Cheers.